Hi, and welcome to this podcast, which is Studying History, the Transition to University. Now, this guide today will be useful for those who've decided to study history and have got their eyes set on the prize, but it's also going to be useful for those who are just considering history as an option. Now, I'm going to draw on my experience in two areas. The first area I'm going to draw on is my experience as a history lecturer, so I'll be able to give you the inside story about what it's like to achieve academic success at university from the point of a lecturer. But I've also been a student development officer in the last 4 years, which means I've been interested in acclimatising students to an academic context. So in dealing with this sometimes problematic, but sometimes exciting transition from school on the one hand to university on the other. And over the last few years, I've been struck by how stimulating, but how difficult in certain ways those first few weeks are at university when you move from a position of security to one of novelty. I've got 4 tips here that will help you towards a successful transition, I think. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is manage your expectations. I'll say more about this in a second, but it's really about this idea of expecting things to be different but not entirely alien. You need to take some of the things that you're doing at school and apply them at university, but also expect some things that will be radically different. The next thing I want to talk about is an idea of you controlling that transition. So rather than expecting to be spoon-fed and to have every step taken for you, you've got things that you can do in those 4 weeks leading up to university, just after you've got your A-level results. You can control the transition. The most crucial aspect of my talk today, though, I think is going to be about entering the research community. The research community is going to be one that's very different from a teaching community, which is essentially what a school is. You're going to be expected to take the initiative, to engage in what we call independent learning. And the aim of this presentation, in part, is to take you through the steps of what independent learning is and how to become successful at it. And finally, what I'd like to talk about is just dealing with, but also reveling in the difference that university provides. So let's begin with expectations. A lot of the things that you'll be doing at school will still be relevant to your career at university. University is different, but it's not an alien place. Many of the skills that you'll be taking part in at school, reading sources closely, writing in an articulate, open way, arguing and critiquing with historians, these are exactly the skills that you'll be able to partake in at university, except at a refined and developed level. The other point is we've accepted you to university. You've got your grades, we'll welcome you into university, and we're actually respecting the level of work that you've already accomplished. So, not everything's going to be new, but I will say there are some key and crucial differences that you need to be aware of. First of all is a greater diversity of topics. At school, you'll have gone through a series of topics in some rigour between GCSE and A-level. Now, this is just going to get wider and more expansive. And the important thing here is to be open and experimental in what you're going to receive and be nurtured in. There'll be a great level of expertise. A range of researchers will be working on different topics. And some of them may sound unfamiliar. You'll be invited to look at medieval history, history of Asia perhaps, certainly a wider scope of geographical and chronological periods than you're used to. The second thing that you'll have to take account of is the range of teaching styles. You may have had 1 tutor at A-level, perhaps 2 tutors. You're certainly not going to have had 10, 15, 20 tutors, perhaps even more, working with you, guiding you, teaching you in different ways. The important thing here is it's almost like getting used to new personalities. They will have a different tone, a different sense of authority, a different presence. They'll also be dabbling in different technologies, different styles of presentation. It's up to you to move from one to the other without becoming completely bewildered. Instead, think about it as a new challenge, a new form of communication, and you'll begin, I suppose, to be successful through that openness. The third thing I think that's important to talk about is this notion of independent learning. Now, I'll talk about that in rigorous detail in a second, but this is about your initiative, your way of planning your research, and of directing in a disciplined and structured way your learning. And finally, I'll say a few things about different ways of participating, because you'll go beyond the classroom, into the library, into lectures, into seminar rooms, but you'll also be invited to participate in online discussion, group research, for example. working with your peers, collaborating with outsiders sometimes. So it's an openness to a new form of participation that's important too. But before I go on to these crucial differences, I think, at university level, let's talk a bit about that period of transition that I mentioned earlier. Now, this might be a year between your A-levels. If you're doing a gap year, for example, you have a year to think about, plan, and research your time at university. More likely, though, it's going to be that crucial 4-week period between getting your A-level results and entering this new context, this new world called the university. And for many reasons, the university is now a student-centered place. You're paying more fees, you should expect more, but you can do things to anticipate the differences that you'll encounter at university as well. The thing to realise is that you'll get a blizzard of information, an array of leaflets, guides, temptations, during the lead up to induction week, your first week at university, and during it. So it's about you actually picking and choosing and controlling what you really get into and what you leave for later development. The key thing, as I suggested at the beginning, is to control that process. Don't go in there like a rabbit in front of the headlights and be scared by all the information. Pick and choose, nominate your avenues, your routes to acclimatization. Preparation tips then, what you should really do in those 4 weeks. Well, make the most of that limbo period. It's unlikely you'll have any work in relation to school. That's over now. You're unlikely to have reading that's specifically driven towards university. I'll say a bit more about that in a second. So this is often a time when you're excited, you've got into university, you're anticipating, but perhaps, there's not much to do. So instead of just leaving it and leaving yourself with an open mind, get down to research. After all, you're a historian, this is what you're good at. Get on the website of that university and focus in. And what I would say, as a general guide, you can have a look around different departments, different activities, but think local first of all. Your school or department of history is going to be your home for the next 3 or 4 years. So it's important to find out about that community and get a sense of belonging, almost create a sense of virtual community before you even arrive at university. So, how about looking at staff research interests? These are the people who are going to be teaching you for 3 or 4 years. Get to know what they're interested in. Look at their recent research projects. Have a think about even staff whose research strands or interests or areas may be close to yours. You'll probably be taught by these people, so it's really reassuring and satisfying if you find a group of staff who you want to work with, who you plan to work with, and you can feel already kind of familiar with, at least their faces and their research summaries before you arrive. Module topics or course topics. Now, don't just look at the first year topics. Have a look at second and third year topics as well, because these will be linked with your first year topics and be connected intellectually and practically. So, have a glance at them and imagine yourself at the end of 3 years working on a research project with a staff member who you're familiar with and whose research interests are dovetailing with your own. Have a look at the news and events on a website as well, because schools do more than teach. They put on research seminars, they organise public engagement events, there'll be broadcasts associated with the university and the school. Get a sense of what's up to date, what's happening, and in that way you'll be able to fall into step more easily with the school or department when you arrive. Some history departments, not all, will have more bespoke information for you. They'll have induction sites specifically there to settle you in step by step. They'll have workshops on assessment policy, on plagiarism, on how to progress in university. They may even have a few podcasts like this for you to get to grips with. If they do have that, hone in on them, because those will be written for you in a language that's accessible, open, and engaging. So if they're there, take advantage of it. There's more informal groups as well, history Facebook groups, often groups of students who are already at university in your department, really know the student's perspective. They'll share information, not just about academic matters, but accommodation, sports, societies, and so on. Take advantage of those in that crucial 4-week lead up to induction. Now, there's one thing that I'd like to talk about, and this is a negative. Don't worry about reading this. The number of inquiries I've had year after year is, what do I read? How can I prepare before I get to university? This is natural. It's about anxiety. It's about thinking that you have to have a huge step up in terms of your academic development. But universities and departments don't actually expect you to go away and read hundreds of books during your summer. before university. Instead, more often than not, they'll give you a reading when you arrive and direct you towards a manageable quantity of information when you arrive. So rather than do that, unless specifically guided to, keep your mind open, you've got enough to deal with, you're moving from home, you're entering a new community, just get interested in the department rather than worrying about reading the 4 volumes of Edward Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire.